Hey, this is Vu, and today I'm going to be talking about middle on DE cache. And this is not only one of the most requested places to go over, but also one of the most commonly misplayed places to play in matchmaking and in pugs. And the reason for that is that the majority of the maps in the competitive rotation give people the idea that every map plays one player middle. However, if your team is trying to play only one middle on cache, you've basically guaranteed yourself to lose rounds where their team tries to take any sort of mid control. Having one player in middle here is just not enough to hold the variety of angles the terrorists can play and the ways they can smoke off Z and white box and the Molotovs they throw. Generally, what you want to be doing is either playing a 2-2-1, that's 2A, 2 mid, 1B, or a 1-3-1 with 3 in the middle. Because middle on cache is incredibly important to hold. There are so many places they can go once they take middle. So generally, I would suggest for a normal matchmaking game to play 2-2-1 with a player that plays white box early, maybe throws a smoke or throws a Molotov, but basically just supports middle at the beginning of the round and then heads right over to A little bit later. And generally, you can actually time that by having your A player come over to truck and throw a smoke into A main, and then as that starts to fade when their team would be likely to start to pressure A, your player can be up here looking at Squeaky, maybe going to forklift, something like that, to support that player by the time their team is going to start to pressure A. Now, the second player towards the middle of the map is going to be the vents player. And generally what you want to do as the vents player is throw a smoke like that as you jump out and then run up looking at the wall. And generally I would suggest getting over here first before going into vents. And the reason I say that is actually because what's going to happen is their team, if they go out middle, is 99% of the time going to throw a flash out. If they just try and jump out, your team's going to get the kill on them jumping through the smoke anyways. And if they try and flash push out, by having your back turned and not going into vents, it means you won't be blind and you'll be in a good position to surprise someone and take them down as they come out middle through the smoke. So you're giving yourself a good advantage on them as they come out. Then once you get into vents, you do have to worry about two things here. First off, if you're in this corner of the vents here, you actually won't be able to see a player that's right here who would be able to kill you. So you have to make sure that you don't go out that far. Play a little bit further back so that doesn't happen. And if you want to come out vents, you can throw a flash like that, or there's plenty of ways to rotate vents to B. You just have to decide on your own. The other thing you have to worry about is a player that behind this smoke that gets thrown right here might sit in this corner, wait, and then peek out once the smoke has disappeared. So you do have to worry about that as well. And you can counter this by either being confident in your shot to take him down, although I'm not completely comfortable with that, or you can just stay unpeaked and then re-peak every few seconds to try and have the advantage. And actually one way you can play that is to play that player hiding in the vents and you play a player sandbags. Now sandbags isn't a perfect spot, but what you can do from sandbags, take some shots at the first guy, turn around, throw a flash, and your teammate peeks out from vents after you throw that flash, or as the flash is thrown before it blows up. So you catch people turning around. That way, the players have already cleared out the vent side, they're focused on someone else, they're focused on a flash as well, and the vents player can get a relatively easy kill. Now this is actually made even more easy if you try to boost into vents from B. And so what you do is you just have someone come over here, break the vents through that wall before the round really starts so their team doesn't know you're boosting for sure, come around here, throw a smoke into B main, and then boost after that smoke blooms. And that way, not only do they not know you're in vents, but they also see that vents isn't broken, so they think that there's no chance someone could be in vents. Now, the final player in the middle is going to be the player that plays either Z or sandbags. Now, generally, if you can have an op in Z, or even a rifler rifle in Z, and their team doesn't smoke it, that's the optimal scenario, because Z is such a powerful spot in terms of being able to rotate to either bomb site, and also in terms of just being able to hold down quite a few areas, and if your vents player spots someone, peek out wide, clear boost, and the like. The problem with sandbags, although it's a very strong spot, is that once you get the first kill, you're completely stuck, and they can actually Molotov you fairly easily from pretty much anywhere in middle just by coming over here and throwing a Molotov off of that little bit of the wall there, and you're really kind of screwed when that happens. So although sandbags is a great spot, it can backfire. So I would definitely suggest going Z over going sandbags when possible. The final thing I'll mention is actually if their team is very heavily taking mid, commonly, and there's two ways you can kind of deal with that. The first way is you can try and boost your player that goes vents up here instead of having him run around. This gives him a bit better of a vantage point on middle and actually prevents him from getting flash from this flash and allows him to more easily spot flashes come over boost. And that way, as they come out middle, even if he gets blind, he can still push up because a player that gets out to here won't see him and get that frag fairly easily. And if they try and go over boost, he's got a fairly big advantage in that he's going to completely surprise his opponents. So this can work very effectively. And one of the ways you can do that is actually to have a player come up here. The very first spawn comes up here, throws a smoke or a Molotov, in this general area here. So you can throw it just like this, and that will Molotov off boost. And then you jump up onto these sandbags and boost right up over. So you have a bit of an advantage there. And then not only that, but this player plays out by sandbags, because when you're trying to heavily contest mid and they're smoking off Z, sandbags is a fairly effective area, especially when you have two other team members supporting you. Now, the other thing you can do is instead of having this player go white box, or perhaps instead of having this player go sandbags or Z, you have a player come up and push up middle. And if you aren't going to be boosting sandbags, the other way you can actually Molotov boost is just look up there and throw it just before you hit this little railing here, and that way it'll Molotov boost as well, and you can actually run up and get into a spot like this. Now the vents player also could potentially go up here, however that does make his rotate to be very, very long, and not only that, it's quite dangerous as he has to cross so many angles. So if he goes there, your B player has to be very comfortable and very confident that they're not going to be rushing B. But if you actually have a player in vents and a player pushed up here, you can have the vents player cross over. Again, it's going to make his rotate to B take a little bit longer. However, if he's already set himself up in vents, then that means their team's not rushing B and you have to worry about it a little bit less. You boost over, you get right up here, and you're in a pretty good spot to flank A or to flank mid. And I'm sure everybody here has had that happen to them, where they've gotten flanked from boost and just felt like crap. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.